Clementine's smart, she's funny, she is kind, she is honest. She's the sort of person that everybody should be at heart, and she deserves the same chance to live her life as anyone else would. I have 4 children. Clementine is the youngest, and she is the child that's living with Prader-Willi syndrome. Up until Clementine was born, she was my 4th child. I was never given any indication that anything could be wrong or was wrong. So I was very unprepared for her birth. They noticed some things about her that were a little abnormal, and basically lethargy and floppiness. We were really lucky. She only stayed in the NICU for 5 days. Flash forward 5 or 6 weeks later, and our pediatrician calls us and says she has Prader-Willi syndrome. And I remember this, and I'll never forget it. I remember his voice. I remember hearing him say it. I remember where I was standing in my house. I remember that I had to hold on to the counter to prevent myself from just falling to the ground. And I've never had a shock like that in my life. There weren't a lot of people available to us in that immediate time afterward that could really give us any good advice. Our pediatrician simply said, you're going to have to find a specialist, and then we made an appointment. It was an eye-opening experience, so I left with this really long laundry list of all the things that I had to start doing, which was completely overwhelming, but I left with a sense of hope that there were things we could do. She was still delayed developmentally, but she was getting stronger, so that part was easier. It was the coordination of having the other 3 children going to their schools or their respective programs, taking her 2 to 3 times a week to therapy. They had to listen when things were difficult for her and watch her struggle. And so there's been a development of empathy and compassion that they may not otherwise have had. And there is a fierce sense of protectiveness for her that warms my heart. And so, the early years, she was pretty typical. She got along with the other kids. We didn't really have any issues or problems. Food seeking and that sort of thing was not an issue. Even the preoccupation with food really wasn't there yet. As the years went on and the demands of the education grew greater, some of frustration and noticing differences started to come up. Hyperphagia doesn't always look the same for every person. It differs from person to person. This is a spectrum syndrome, and that is also something that is a spectrum in how it presents. It is a legitimate hunger signal. It's the same hunger signal that I would have if I were starving and my body said, you have to eat now or you're gonna die. It is legitimate. The signal goes out and it never turns off. But what I do see is total preoccupation, fixation, perseverance, and we do have to secure everything in our house. All the cabinets are locked, the refrigerator's locked, the trash is taken out every night, food can't be brought in from the outside, kids can't leave food in their bedrooms. When special occasions come and there are birthday cakes and things of that sort, we have to be mindful of what it is we're serving in case there's a possibility that she could get into it. The constant anxiety of it is a living thing. You can look at her and you can see it. You can see it in her face. You can see it in her eyes. You can see the anxiety. And that really is the anxiety because of the hyperphagia. And so it can cause skin picking, nervous tics, hair pulling, all kinds of stuff. It's really awful. When she was diagnosed, it was like falling in this big hole. So you're in the hole with your child. If I do everything I'm supposed to do, if I have therapies, specialist care, all this kind of stuff, I think I can crawl out of this hole and make it to solid ground. Climbing up, you're climbing up, you're climbing up. But then the hyperphagia starts to settle in, and just as you get to the top, there's an avalanche, and you're right back down at the bottom. It removes any sense of independence for your child, for yourself, for your kids when they're living in your home. Hyperphagia and the impact of it in the way the family can move around society. It's a self-imposed quarantine of sorts because you can't go anywhere without somebody having food. Clementine is more interested in music, so she likes to go out and listen to music. She's convinced her dad on several occasions to go to some concerts that he was brave enough to actually go to. We enjoy traveling. We travel as much as we can. I hope that there are advances and treatments available. If and when that occurs, there is an opportunity for Clementine to live a life that she deserves to live, that everybody would want to live, and it also opens the door to the rest of the members of our family.